Urgent alert. Troops in Chicago and the law in question. Breaking news tonight out of the Midwest. The president has ordered troops to the city of Chicago. This sudden and significant development has sent shockwaves through the nation, raising immediate and urgent questions about the legal authority behind such a move. Anytime the United States military is positioned to operate on domestic soil in a law enforcement capacity, it triggers a cascade of legal and constitutional alarms. The central issue at stake involves a powerful yet often misunderstood federal law designed specifically to prevent this exact scenario from unfolding without clear justification and oversight. This law serves as a fundamental guardrail in American democracy. The core of the matter rests with a piece of legislation known as the Posse Comitatus Act. This law is not merely a guideline or a policy preference. It is a federal statute with criminal penalties attached. Its purpose is to draw a bright line between the role of the military and the role of civilian law enforcement. Understanding this act is now more critical than ever, as the situation in Chicago forces a national conversation about the limits of presidential power and the principles that govern the use of armed forces within our own borders. The actions taken in the coming hours and days will be scrutinized through the lens of this pivotal law. As we unpack this complex situation, it is essential to separate fact from speculation. The order to deploy troops immediately brings the Posse Comitatus Act from the pages of law books into the forefront of a real-world crisis. Does this deployment comply with the law? The answer depends on a very specific set of conditions and legal authorizations that must be met. The presence of uniformed soldiers on American streets, tasked with duties typically reserved for police officers, is one of the most sensitive actions a government can take. It is precisely what this historical act was created to regulate. The implications of this troop movement extend far beyond the city limits of Chicago. It touches upon the delicate balance between federal authority and state sovereignty, and it forces citizens and policymakers alike to confront deep-seated traditions about the role of the military in a free society. Is this a necessary measure to restore order? Or is it an overreach of executive power that challenges the legal framework established to protect civil liberties? To answer that, we must first go back in time and understand why the Posse Comitatus Act was enacted and what its specific provisions mean for the events unfolding tonight. To comprehend the gravity of the news from Chicago, we must look back to the period immediately following the American Civil War. The Posse Comitatus Act was passed into law in 1878. Born directly from the contentious experiences of the Reconstruction era. During that time, federal troops were stationed throughout the southern states to enforce federal laws, oversee elections, maintain order in a deeply divided and volatile environment. While intended to protect the rights of newly freed slaves, the prolonged military presence in civilian affairs created widespread concern and resentment about the federal government's power and its use of soldiers as a domestic police force. Lawmakers at the time grew increasingly wary of this dynamic, believing that a permanent or easily summoned military presence in civilian life was incompatible with the principles of a democratic republic. They argued that the military's mission was to fight the nation's external enemies, not to enforce laws against its own citizens. The act was therefore a direct response to this period, designed to formally end the practice of using the United States Army to execute domestic laws. The name itself, Posse Comitatus, is Latin for force of the county, hearkening back to an Old English legal tradition where a sheriff could call upon citizens to help keep the peace, a power that Congress wanted to ensure would not be extended to the federal military. The fundamental goal of the act was simple and clear: to maintain a strict separation between the military and civilian law enforcement, a mission that is fundamentally different from the community-oriented, rights-respecting role of civilian police. The training, equipment, and rules of engagement for the military are designed for overwhelming force against an enemy, not for the nuanced and delicate task of policing civilian population. Lawmakers feared that blurring this line would lead to an erosion of civil liberties and a shift toward military rule, a concept that the nation's founders had explicitly warned against.